Life is a series of choices, whether they're big or small, that ultimately shape our future. It's in these pivotal moments that our paths can take unexpected turns, leading us to a completely different destination. But change, my beautiful souls, we already know this is not an overnight process. It really is, if we begin to embrace it as such, a beautiful journey of growth, resilience, and courage. So what we're going to do today is really explore how you can be one decision away from a completely different life. And also how much power truly lies within us so that we can actually feel empowered to make more decisions within our lives. Can you imagine the possibilities that lie just around the corner, waiting for you to take that leap of faith? Welcome to my channel. My name is Francis, and I believe that when we defy the resistance, face our fears, we can create wildly beautiful lives. So my goal, as always, is to really just inspire you to rise above the self-doubt, to conquer your fears, and embrace a life of limitless possibilities, free from judgment with full clarity. So as you're watching, if this message is resonating with you, you know what to do. Show me some love, hit that like button, and subscribe. And also join my Thrive newsletter so that we can continue to have conversations like these offline. So the question that we're going to dive deep into is, can one decision change your life? Often we tend to think that decisions can impact other people's lives, but not our own. It's that worked for them, but it won't work for me mentality. We sometimes believe that those mysterious others, those other people, whomever they are, have the capacity to make more significant decisions than we do. We begin to believe that the lives that we see other people live aren't the lives that we can live also. But the truth is that is not the case, y'all. It's not. And we're going to get into this. But let me ask you, do you have a hard time making decisions in your life? When you're faced with options, no matter how big or how small, do you find yourself paralyzed by the lack of decisiveness? At times, we grapple with choices to the point of indecision, which essentially means that we're deciding not to choose. So indecision is, in fact, a decision. So let me ask you, what is getting in the way of you deciding? Before I provide you with some self-reflective questions to dig deep, let's explore the hesitancy behind the paralysis of indecision. Now, there are three significant reasons why many people find it really challenging to take clear, decisive action in their lives. Of course, this isn't all encompassing. There could be other reasons why you might be a bit hesitant to make these sorts of decisions in your lives. But before delving deep into these reasons, it's important to acknowledge that there might be seasons in your life where making no decision is exactly what you need. So honor that as well. And perhaps there are areas in your life that you're intentionally savoring. So that's okay. However, if your decision is causing you to feel stagnant and trapped, then I invite you to keep watching this video. It may provide you not only with some added clarity, but also the inspiration that you need to become more decisive. So let's get into the barriers of indecision and why it might be a bit challenging for you to make decisions. The first one is a hard one, and it runs deep. It could be low self-esteem or low self-worth. Low self-esteem or self-doubt can make it very difficult for you to believe that you actually have the power to change your life through your decisions. So you find yourself doubting your own abilities and worthiness. And this lack of self-assurance can make you hesitant to take decisive action because you fear making the wrong choice. I remember there's no such thing as making the wrong choice, but you might find yourself second guessing yourself, and you've created this distortion that you are bound to fail even if you make a decision. So you don't make a decision at all. And because of this low self-worth, you might actually find yourself relying excessively on external validation. I did a whole video about people pleasing that you can catch here somewhere, but you might not trust your own judgment and seek constant reassurance from others before making decisions. Does this sound familiar? Trust me, I used to be there, so I totally get it. But this can actually lead to a cycle of indecision as you wait for external approval. And because of this limited self-image, it really constrains your willingness to make bold decisions that could literally powerfully change your life. So here's your first self-reflection question to sort of dig a little bit deeper into this. What lies at the core of this skewed self-perception I hold about myself? If you were to backtrack and pinpoint the origin of this feeling of inadequacy within yourself, where would that journey lead you? And in the timeline of your life, when did you first start embracing this narrative? This is important, not because I want you fixated on this urgent point, but because what happens to many of us over time is that we've ingrained these belief systems within ourselves. And these narratives are overwhelmingly convincing. Like we really believe that they're true, and they're not. So by identifying the timeline, you can uncover the moments when other people's restricted perceptions of you seeped in, ultimately allowing you to release these narratives once and for all. The second barrier towards decision making is immediate gratification. I wrote in my newsletter not too long ago that one decision doesn't necessarily change your life in an instant. But what it does is begin to change the trajectory of your life. It changes that energetic frequency, but that trajectory takes time. And so what happens is that most people prioritize short-term comfort and pleasure over long-term benefits, or they avoid decisions that involve sacrifice or delayed gratification. Because what it means is that you have to give up something for something greater in the future. And some decisions as it relates to like personal growth and long-term creations, I don't call them goals, but like creations, involves some sort of delay. For instance, if I make the decision that I'm going to become a better communicator, this means that I am willing to have several hard conversations to practice increasing my tolerance levels so that I can communicate better with those around me. But if I'm not willing to delay that comfort, right, the comfort of getting it, quote unquote, right, and embracing the discomfort, I actually might avoid learning how to be a better communicator because it's not something that I can learn quickly, right? Because my ego might be bruised in the process of this practice. And since this isn't something I can do overnight, I might avoid it completely. Long-lasting change only happens over time. Overcoming the preference for immediate gratification often involves developing practices, rituals, and the ability to delay the exchange while also not being particularly attached to that exchange. And what I mean by this is that we don't do these things just to be rewarded, but really to find more peace and balance and joy into our lives. And so this process requires us to shift from running a sprint and walking, not running, but walking a marathon. And shifting from that kind of perspective will be very challenging for those who might be a bit more impulsive. The third barrier towards decision making or indecision is, of course, the fear of unknown, right? That's like the barrier, the ultimate barrier for anybody who's on this personal growth journey. This fear of unknown is a natural and common response that significantly impacts our decision making. What it refers to is the apprehension or anxiety that you might feel when confronted with situations or choices or changes that you cannot predict or fully understand. And if you're risk averse, then you're going to lean toward making safe, predictable choices rather than taking risks. You might even opt in for the status quo, even if it's not ideal, because it feels more familiar and less intimidating. And because of this risk averse, you might focus on what you might lose versus what you will gain, even if the potential gains outweigh the losses. And ultimately, by fearing the unknown, this will lead you to procrastinate more. So you postpone making decisions to avoid facing that uncertainty. You believe that by delaying, you can gather more information, talk to some more people, wait for a sign, light some incense, read your horoscope, all this to reduce the unknown aspects of whatever choice that you're trying to make. I know I said 3, but I have one more to add to this list. Number 4 is that you're overwhelmed by the amount of decisions that you feel that you need to make in your life. And this is common because it's not just one aspect of your life, right? Sometimes it's multiple areas. But I always find that if you can find the domino, the main one, it becomes a domino effect for everything else in your life. But you just got to find that main one. But as you know, like the thought of making significant changes can feel overwhelming, right? Especially if there are many aspects of your life that you feel that you need to change all at once. Of course, we think that, but we don't necessarily have to do it that way. We don't necessarily have to approach it in that manner. Because you're feeling overwhelmed, of course, you're going to get stressed out. And through that stress, it's going to be harder for you to think clearly and logically, which makes it harder to make a decision. And so as a result, you might feel more stuck and stagnant. And sometimes being in that overwhelmed state can actually lead to poor judgment. So you find yourself making hasty or irrational decisions as a way to alleviate the stress of having too many options. But what happens is when you're making decisions from that place, you're making decisions that are out of alignment with you, with your values, with where and who you would like to be. Reflecting on my own life, I see how every significant decision I made, no matter how big, no matter how small, was a major catalyst for profound change in my life. And these choices, I made them when I was definitely afraid. But what happened is that it laid the foundation for a life that I'm super grateful for now. I think about it. If I had let my family's fears hold me back from moving out of Massachusetts, I would have never experienced this vibrant life in DC. I had a lot of fun in DC. I mean, it came with a lot of challenges, but I had a great time. I love DC. Had I listened to the well-intentioned advice of friends and family about not quitting my job in 2013, I wouldn't have transitioned into a career that led me to explore the world in 2016. That one decision led me to journey to 21 countries and allowed me to reside in more places than I can count. Again, those decisions were riddled with anxiety about the unknown, the discomfort, and of course, mommy guilt because I was a single parent. And so the idea of leaving my comfortable home base where I could just quickly drop my son off to my family at any given moment, that was scary for me. And as a single parent, having that kind of support was huge. So to go to not having that comfort was a major transition for me. But I knew that if I didn't start making some sort of decision to begin to change the trajectory of my life, I would have been just lost in my depression and my crippling anxiety and just total discontent for my life. I had to make those decisions because it literally became like life or death for me at that point. So for me, the risk definitely outweighed the exchange. I was willing to release a lot of those fears, and I did them with fear. It wasn't like fear just disappeared, but I was willing to do them even in the face of the unknown and all of the discomfort just to have a completely different life than the life that I was living. So I ask you, is it possible for your life to change through one decision? Of course it is. It's 100% possible. I see it all the time. I've lived it myself. It is possible. We just have to move through those barriers. Some of us are just one decision away from the life that we want to live. Some of us are just one decision away from the joy that we want to feel, and even one decision away from the financial abundance that we desire to create. Remember that decisions serve as valuable feedback mechanisms that work wonders in our lives. The act of taking decisive action actually makes us again feel more empowered. Decisions are just feedback. So the quicker we make a decision, the quicker we get the feedback. And it's not about rushing the process, but it's about getting clarity. And you get clarity by making decisions. So let's wrap this up. In life, there exists this agreement that tells us to make decisions while also embracing surrender. It means making choices without rigid attachments to the outcome, because sometimes that attachment also prevents us from making that decision. But when we embrace the surrender through the decision-making process, there's this spaciousness that enables us to gracefully navigate the fine balance between actively shaping our lives and being an observer of those shifts and subtle changes. And in this dance of life, you can simultaneously be both the observer and the creator. The feedback that comes from making those decisions actually gives you a unique perspective, and it allows you to observe and gain deeper insights into yourself, into your journey, your life journey, and the wisdom necessary for the evolution of your soul. I will leave you with one last self-reflective question. What do you sacrifice by clinging to indecision? What's the trade-off? How are you getting in the way of your ability to receive? In the comments below, tell me one decision that you're going to make. It doesn't mean that you're going to make this decision today or even in the next month, maybe. But what it really means is that you're going to go on this journey. You're going to begin to change the trajectory, change that energy from stagnation to motion. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and of course, subscribe to the channel. In the meantime, join my Thrive newsletter. There are also 125 self-reflection questions in the description below that can help you get started on this journey. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the other side of wholeness. Take care.